Hello, everybody. I'm on a bit of a roll today, so I thought I'd just share a little bit about parenting an adolescent and beyond, if you will, and even throughout a child's entire developmental journey. But I want to speak mostly um, about parenting the adolescent, if you will. And why do I want to speak to that? Well, in my practice, I run into a lot of parents who, what I call, haven't made that shift from doing to being. And generally, what that means is that when children are little, we do a lot for them. I mean, we have to, right? And that makes perfectly sense. They don't have the intellectual or physical capacity to do a lot for themselves, and so we do. And and as far as instruction goes, what are children receiving? Elementary instruction, right? So they're receiving a lot of information and a lot of formulas, ABCs, the basics of math, the basics of English, the basics of even how to socialize. So it's kind of nuts and bolts stuff. Um, and so, for parents, there's a lot of advice giving, a lot of counsel given, lectures given, um, and one of the ways I explain that to parents is that it's kind of like when kids are little, if they're riding a bike, we put training wheels on them. Um, the child doesn't have the capacity yet to balance itself, and it doesn't have the skill to do some of the other things. The brain isn't processing things as quickly as it should in order to maintain balance, direction, etc. So we put those training wheels on. Um, And at first, that's great. They work and they're doing what they're supposed to do, and the child doesn't fall and hurt themselves. The child, develops some skill and ability, and then there comes a time to take the training wheels off. And that is usually a time of anxiety for both the child and the adult. Because when you take those training wheels off and moms and dads are kind of pushing them on the back of the bike, and all of a sudden comes that time when you have to let go and the speed of the bike is too quick for you to keep up with, and you take that deep breath and you hold your breath and you hope that your child, is going to be able to keep the bike upright. And of course it never goes perfect, and so you might have a couple of falls, or you see that bike starting to wiggle, and so it creates stress and tension for the child and for the parent. But there comes that time when the training wheels must come off, because in order for the child to experience all the freedom and joy that the bike can offer, the training wheels have to come off. Same thing for life. So at first, we do a lot of lecturing and advice giving and counsel, and we do a lot for them. That works. It does what it's supposed to do. It keeps them safe, helps them build some basic skill and ability. But there comes a time for the training wheels to come off. In other words, where no longer parents can get away with lecturing and advice giving. And parents always say, I don't know what happened. Boy, they turned 12, they turned 13, they started to go into high school, and I don't know what happened. They just became so disrespectful. And of course, especially in the parent leadership group, everybody smiles and nods because everybody has a similar story. That's when it hit the fan. And of course, at that point, you hear the parents' interpretation of the events. It's like, oh well, they became so disrespectful. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, they don't mind me anymore. They don't do what I tell them to do. They don't do this. They talk back. They want to kind of do it themselves. They want to do it their own way. I tell them to, do their homework right away. I tell them to do this and I tell them to do that, and I get the eyes rolling and etc. And some parents, of course, come in reporting more significant trauma and conflict. But I guess you could say that similarity in all the stories is that somehow it's the teen that's being disrespectful. Um, so, um, a deeper look And especially for those parents who are willing to look, the insights can come rather quickly. Truth is, you've had the training wheels on. The child doesn't want them to be on anymore. It's time for this child to become an adolescent and to make some choices of their own and try some things, do some things. Yeah, it might stress you out, might even stress them out a little bit. But the training wheels have to come off. That means that you can no longer lecture, give advice, excuse me, or counsel without their permission. And you can no longer do for them. Just keep doing. And now you're creating tension. That strategy that used to work now is creating tension and conflict. You are irritating. Yeah, you've become an irritant. Well, what am I supposed to do, John? Is oftentimes the question. Tell me what to do. Say, well, you're in the right place, but let me tell you what, because in this place, theirs is our motto. To grow up is to give up. That's what it means to be a human being. This is our growing up triangle. This is the map of the mind, and the developmental map that we're going to be using. And basically, adult, you're called to give up some things now. You're not called to stop parenting. You're not called to stop bringing up your child. You're just called to give up the way you've been doing it. You're called to shift from doing into being. And so this is the harder thing for parents to get, for all people to get. Because it's way easier to do stuff. It's way easier for parents to give their kid a ride here, there, and everywhere. It's easier to buy some shoes and clothes and food. It's easier to make a meal. It's easier to go on a vacation. It's easier to do, right? That's why the question always comes to me, John, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. I'm stressed out. I need to know what to do. And I say, well, you know what? Here's the Einstein quote again that shows up. Let me give it to you simple. You've done too much. You're doing too much. That should be the good news, Because you've come to me because you're exhausted. That would be one of the things you've come to me for. Because you're tired of being exhausted. You're tired of things. You're tired of this. You're tired of that. Okay. Well, then you're in the right place. Good news. It's about doing less, not doing more. So stop doing. But here's the thing. It's simple, but not simpler. Because now what you want to do is you want to start going to the gym, if you will, and building this muscle called being. So then how do you discipline then, John? Well, remember what discipline is. Discipline is a teaching. Discipline isn't a set of rules. Discipline is a body of wisdom teaching that you should be inviting your son or daughter into. And this wisdom teaching continues to instruct and unfold. So try this on for size, parents. When you think about going from doing to being, here's a little saying, and I've attached it to a number of my emails, and you'll probably recognize it. It says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. Let me read that to you again. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood. Don't do that. And don't assign them tasks and work. Don't do that. But rather, teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. Long for the endless immensity of the sea. See, what this little parable says here is that, again, if you want to build a ship, the temptation, most people would want to, okay, you go collect wood, you do this task, and you do this task, and you send everybody to do stuff. It says, don't do that. No. If you really want to get that ship built and you really want to go somewhere, teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. Teach them to have a longing for the endless immensity of something, of the sea. Give them a thirst for something. Help give rise to that. And I know the temptation is going to be to start assigning chores. You need to go get your resume. You need to work on this. You need to work on that if you want to get a job. You need to. How do you teach a child to yearn to contribute to society through labor? That's where we would go to that in this wisdom teaching. If you want your son or daughter to go to school, are you speaking in an inspiring way? Oh, you better go to school because if you don't, you're going to be a failure. You're never going to be able to get a job. So you better do this and you better do this and you better do this. I got so many parents stuck in that tragic story. If you don't go to school, something terrible is going to happen. So here's what you better do. And so this parable says, rather than to focus on, first of all, rather than to be, take the bait of this temptation for anxiety, and to do things about it, get in touch with your own longing and their longing. What do people long for? What might your son and daughter long for? What might your wife or your husband long for? When I think about what I long for, it's like a vision. It's like a heavenly thing that's very attractive that I then want to move towards rather than be pushed or coerced. How do you see the best in people? How do you see the best in your son and daughter and speak to that? Well, son, I know you're a young man who, you're mature and you're a great leader and I know you want to experience all the wonderful things that life has for you. What I'm doing is I'm affirming his desire. I'm affirming the desire of my youth. I'm lighting fire to it. I'm adding fuel to that desire. You notice that all I spoke to was the desire. I didn't tell him what to do. I can't. First of all, if I go back to telling people what to do and give advice and lectures, what's going to happen? I'm an irritant then. I'm pushing the river upstream. What river? The river of individuation. He needs to become his own man, which is to make up his own decisions. Make his own decisions and experience the consequences. Guess what happens if I keep lecturing? Then probably, by the fact that I'm also being traumatizing in my strategy, that my son is then going to make some poor decisions. Not from a place of being inspired, but simply by wanting to, escape the pain and tension and anxiety that I'm creating. So this is what I want to do. I want to be able to see the best in my son, in my daughter, and speak to that. I don't focus on the task, I focus on the desire. I stoke the desire, I fueled the desire. So I just wanted to speak to this a little bit today because we practice this a lot and talk about it a lot in the parent leadership group. Give lots of different examples that a parent must evolve from doing into being. And as our children get older, it's not what we do for them that counts, it's what we're being for them that counts. And this fits well into the video clips on adversity, because if adversity is part of life and what we need to experience in order to become bigger, yet those adversities kind of also give rise to temptation to quit, to become depressed, anxious, to kind of fall prey to other indulgences, then what we need to be, parents, we need to be the cheerleaders on the sideline who are always reminding our sons and daughters of the best of who they are. I can't do anything for him. My son right now is a grown man, and he's in the Marine Corps, thousands of miles away. I can't do anything for him, but I can be a lot for him, especially when he's going through the trials that he's going through. So that's parental evolution. That's for us to know about, parents and leaders. Because if your sons and daughters are 13, 14, 15, and you're still doing a lot for them, question that. And what I would ask you to do is take a look at those videos that I did on trauma vows. Because if a parent keeps doing beyond what is, if you will, helpful, if that parent is trying to force the training wheels to stay on well beyond a person's capacity to ride that bike, then that is being driven by something else. And that needs to be explored and accounted for and responded to. So yeah, take a look at those video clips. I think there's a couple of them that speak on trauma vows. Because your job as a parent, if you want to call it that, your experience as a parent should be getting easier. Doesn't that sound great? Doing less, being more? I know for me it is, because I can't do what I used to do physically. But spiritually, I'm way bigger than I used to be, and I can be a lot. And that's something that grows within me day after day after day. But it grows through a discipline, which I spoke to in the adversity series about how to pick a good discipline that emphasizes paradox, relationality, humility, and accountability and responsibility. So take a look at those videos if you're interested in how to cultivate the kind of adult experience in which you can enjoy yourself, enjoy being parent, enjoy bringing up your kids. I mean, that would be one of the things that we would want to do. We all want our kids to grow up and probably have kids someday. And what this parable says is that, another way to say it, if you want your child to grow up, and have a wonderful family and family life, it's not about doing this and doing that. It's about giving them a vision, an attractive vision. So we need to make we need to make our life attractive. We need to make accountability and responsibility attractive. We need to make humility attractive. We need to make work attractive. We need to make proper financial management attractive. We need to make taking care of our bodies attractive. We need to make spirituality and pursuing a spiritual discipline attractive. We need to make marriage attractive. We need to make, just make sacred things attractive. Make self-respect, self-esteem attractive. That's where our kids first get to see it, is in us. And we give them a longing to become an adult. So I guess that's my phone. My time's up. Hope this is helpful. Have a good day.